I think I was brought here to really push research. And it was basically through the linguistics department, which was very close to the ELI at that time and for some time after. And my major person was Pete Becker, who ended up writing a phenomenal book called Beyond Translation. And I was very much interested in trying to help get second language acquisition off the ground. So just a few years earlier, I'd written a paper that everybody seems to know about, called Interlanguage, and they still read, to my surprise. And I tried to put that into play here at the ELI. And one of the things I did was help bring a bunch of people here, Sue Gass, Carolyn Madden, people like that. I was here from I was at the University of Michigan until I went to the University of London in 1993. But I was director of the ELI from 77 to 83. Well, I did everything I could to foster a research environment, and I think got a whole bunch of things off the ground. And one of the things that Sue Gass has done has to do with the interaction. And she and some colleagues started a lot of studies here that they've carried on at Michigan State. I did a lot of research myself while I was here, published a lot. A lot of interlanguage research and a lot of English for specific purposes research, merging them together. I had one student, German student named Detlef, and I did with a number of TAs. I did a series of studies. We called it the Detlef phenomenon, about how he was writing and how he continued to write. I think it was some sort of physics field, if I remember right. And of course, there were a number of very important teaching assistants who were here. Usha Lakshmanan is certainly one. And then Eva Stahlhaber from Leipzig was another. So there were a lot of very good students here when I was here. And I remember spending a lot of time really working on individual research projects with people. Well, I think that I always felt that Ann Arbor was a good workaholics town. And I mean, compared to where I live now in Manhattan, there wasn't that much to do. So it was a very good place to get a career going and get a lot of work done. And I did that. And there was a whole series of studies on I remember there was subject specialist informant studies. Then there were, we had the testing division, and some very famous people were heads of that. I brought Charles Alderson from England, and then he went back to England. He became professor at Lancaster, and he told me about Dan Douglas. These are all big names in testing. And Dan Douglas was director, and he and I developed a theory of second language acquisition. We called it the discourse domains theory of interlanguage. And we spent a lot of time trying to show that the interlanguages that the students had differed by these kinds of domains. That we talked about, we had some very careful studies that measured the frequency of certain structures, the overuse of certain structures. Even if the grammar and the semantics was right, there were definitely strong statistical differences between the use in, say, office hour conversations versus tutorial conversations or lecture conversations. So we wrote about 16 papers here. Well, he moved to being head of the whole thing at the whole ELI kind of thing at Wayne State, but we continued those studies. And Diane asked me even yesterday about, what else had we done about that. So I was able to get a lot of research done here, even when I was director, but most especially after I was director. Well, yeah, I thought I got a lot of things started here that I carried on here and in London, and then finally at NYU on various types of interlanguage structures. Right now I'm trying to build and create an interlanguage semantics. So the idea is that non-native speakers use target language words and target language syntax, or target language like words, might not be right, but they put their own meanings on that. Now if I'm right about that, then all of the SLA studies we have so far are suspect, because when they say meaning, they mean the target language or the native language. But I've got a lot of evidence from all kind of ethnographic bunch of studies that non-native speakers put idiosyncratic meanings upon target language words. And that was one of the things that I really began to get clear here. With Usha Lakshmanam, we had some students who were trying to get some writing more target-like, and we focused on what they call contrastive connectives. And we did a couple of papers at TESOL, actually, and published them, where the students had created idiosyncratic meanings, and of course language transfer comes in this case from Arabic, upon a particular English connective. Now, one of the things that was said yesterday that's absolutely correct, and was said before yesterday, is that no one's a native speaker of academic and technical English. That's important. Louis Trimble said that in a 1985 book. So I was telling the person who gave that talk to really look that stuff up, because there's a lot of evidence for that. So one of the things we really found out from our studies here, because the students were all here, is that it's not necessarily the case that somebody is more target-like in one domain or another. If you just take the whole idea of certain kinds of written stuff and compare it with oral stuff, you can see both effects. That is, someone can be more target-like in either one. And that's a paper we presented they got a lot of interest. That discourse domains idea got a lot of interest, and I can remember presenting it in Belgium, and we influenced people to do studies there in Leuven, and they found the same thing. That is, they found, in which I obviously would have predicted, they found cases where people were much better in their writing, and more better in the sense of more target-like than they were in their conversation. So one of the things that came out of a lot of this work was the whole idea of discourse domains. And when Dan Douglas was, still is, I guess, a language tester, and we would give or write papers that were in the top journals, applied linguistics and all kinds of places, language learning and stuff like that. And we would, if it was a second language acquisition paper, my name would be first. If it was a testing paper, his name would be first. So we published in the journal Language Testing and all that. And we kept going to the language testing LTRC, the research colloquium, and every year we present a paper saying, okay, here's a study of because you've got to do this in an ethnographic, real, individual way. Or the group effects miss this. It's one of the interesting questions about our over deification of statistical significance. Rather cynical about that. What we found, say we had a student in physics, we would find differences in basic structure, semantics or semantic syntax or something, between more conversational and more written academic English, and we would present it to the test and say, hey, your tests don't cover this. And we did that for 4 or 5 years in a row. We just kept piling on the data, real brute force. And then someone, I think it was Alderson or somebody, stood up and said, enough, you've proven your point. You don't have to do this anymore. And in that case, we were showing that the tests didn't capture it. No matter how good their tests were, they didn't capture what was really going on. And that's what you find out with those tight ethnographic studies. And once again, there were some great linguists that helped us, especially Pete Becker, that helped us work it. Actually, one of the things I did, come to think of it, that I thought was phenomenal was I somehow had a whole bunch of money, maybe from the books, or I don't remember exactly. And I went to the dean and I said, here's what I want to do. And the dean, Billy Fry, who was really friendly to my efforts to try to push research at the ELI. In fact, that's all he cared about, come to think of it. So I got a bunch of money, and I bought out Pete Becker's teaching from linguistics for 1 semester. And I told him I want him to be a research scientist, because that was the title. He said he wanted to be a research humanist, but there was no such title. Anyway, he didn't know whether he wanted to stop his teaching, because he had these huge undergraduate courses, like 300-400 people. I mean, he was such a popular professor. And, once again, I want to recommend his book, Beyond Translation. It's amazing. It's a Michigan Press book. So he came over to the, what happened was Judy Becker, his widow, whom I had dinner with last night, we were talking about this story. What she did was she said, Pete, you'll be teaching in a wider arena. And so we came to the ELI, and of course we had that huge space in the North University building, which was our space since the 1940s. And we loved that old, falling apart space. Anyway, what Pete did was every couple of weeks he brought somebody in residence. Deborah Tannen was one, Gumpertz, the great anthropologist, was another, Fred Erickson, who's social psychologist, was another sociologist. Rich Frankel, sociology of medical discourse, was another. There were about 5 or 6 people that he brought, and I had set it up so that, of course, they give the required public talk. But I was less interested in the impresario part than in them interacting with ELI people. So they came for 3 days, and they met with individuals, graduate students, because we had something like 40 TAs. It was a whole different game. I remember 40. I don't know if that's accurate, but I remember a lot of TAs, and not only in linguistics, but from English, different places with the languages. We had a lot of TAs. And so there was a setup where the person would give a public lecture, of course. But what was more important were the small seminars and the actual personal time of someone going in and talking about their research. Now, for example, one of the people who was here then, because I brought a lot of visitors, was Devin Woods, who ended up running the whole show at Ottawa. And he was here, I think, for 3 years. And he was doing research on teacher beliefs. Oh, Charlotte Lindy was another one who came. The person who does all that life story stuff, and she did work for NASA and so on. And I think it was with Charlotte Lindy that Devin talked for a long time, and his whole research was changed because of that. That is, I tried very hard to make the ELI a good intellectual place, and I think it succeeded, and it set the stage for Swales and everything he did.